Welcome to my cherry guide for UFO 50's Valbrace. Before I show you the full run, I'm going to briefly go over what the requirements are for the cherry. The requirements are that you need to beat the final boss of the game with the red star sword. Now you can play through the game getting through the 6 floors pretty much any way you want to get to the final boss, but there are a few steps you need to do in order to get the red star sword along the way. To start with, on floor 2 you'll come across a dark room. You need to search this room until you find the Zweihander, and make sure you have space in your inventory to pick it up. After that, you have to meet the Red Knight in one of the future floors, and give him the Zweihander. In return, he will give you a red coin. You then have to take the red coin to a healing fountain and use it. Make sure it isn't a poison fountain. Then you want to choose the option for honor. Then, if you return to the Red Knight, you can claim your reward, the Red Star Sword. You do not have to use the Red Star Sword until the final fight if you're like me and happy with your normal weapon. Just remember to equip it before starting the final fight. Complete the game using the sword, and there you have your cherry. Now, to show you my full run with general tips for the game included as we go along. It's worth noting for the run I complete all the steps particular to the cherry on floor 2 and floor 5. So if you're looking at my run, wondering when I do them, those are the moments I do that. I've included the full run because this game is very much a maze, so you can see the paths that I've taken. You may see me pause at certain moments, but that's just because I'm checking my notes on which path to go, because believe it or not, 6 floors in this game is quite a lot to remember. Any particularly long pauses I've tried to cut around, but if there's a short pause, that's the reason for that. Also, since the turns are quite jarring and it's sort of 90-degree turns, it might be difficult to keep track of what way I'm turning. I'd suggest you keep an eye on the minimap at the top right of the screen to keep track of that. I'm going to show a majority of this run, only cutting out parts that are a true waste of time so that you can follow along move by move if you'd like to. Thankfully this game saves after every floor, although for the cherry you'll need to do certain things at certain floors to get the required item. If you're on floor 6 and you don't at least have the Zweihander, it's impossible for you to get the cherry, at least as far as I'm aware. Although this game does save after every floor, in continuous runs, you keep your essence and gems, which are the sort of currencies that this game offers. If you leave the game and come back in, it will start you at the beginning of your most recent floor at 0 essence and 0 gems, which is the same as if you die and have to continue from that floor. Thankfully, you can farm gems or essence as required if you're willing to spend just a bit of extra time. We start out on floor 0, which is sort of a tutorial floor, so I'll use this as an opportunity to go over the controls. I'll be going over the keyboard controls as that's what I used. So combat in this game is very simple. You can attack, block, dodge, or cast a spell. You attack with Z. Your attacks stun enemies as long as they're not blocking. Your attacks use up stamina, which you can see as the green bar on the left. You can block by holding down. Useful as after blocking an enemy attack, they're usually vulnerable. The shield you have equipped dictates how much you can block in any given combat. You can dodge by pressing down and either left or right, although the timing for this is quite awkward, so you'll likely have to practice it a bit. I don't use it much in my run, as once I get a good enough shield I can usually just block when I need to. I also use the movement to weave in and out of enemies to dodge their attacks that way. The dodge is nice to have in emergency situations though, as a reaction. Another thing you can do in combat is cast spells with X. When you do this, you'll get to draw a pattern with the arrow keys in order to cast certain spells. This reminds me of using spells in Arx Fatalis. We haven't learned any spells yet, but it's worth noting you can use spells even if you haven't learnt them in that attempt. As long as you know the pattern, you can cast it. Each spell has a different mana cost. You can see your mana on the purple bar on the left. You can also see your health bar on the left, as well as essence, which is a currency we will earn on floors after this one. You can also see your strength, constitution and wisdom stats, which I will go over later on when we get an opportunity to upgrade them. Enemies sometimes drop items. Often you can equip them and there'll be some sort of bonus in the fight where they can go around stunning enemies or do some damage to enemies at the beginning of fights. Some are more useful than others, but often I end up holding onto them to sell or give to certain NPCs. Other items such as the rat heart you can use to heal a small amount of health. Throughout the run you'll see me go through many doorways. Some doors aren't locked and you can just open them. Others are locked and you need a key. Any key will do. Others are gated off where you need to find a switch in order to access them. Fountains are a full heal. They only have a limited amount of uses, so bear that in mind. Also be wary as not every fountain will heal you, some will poison you. Here I come across spikes on this floor. You can open your menu with Z, which is useful as you can view your inventory or pass turns. Passing turns is particularly useful for these spikes here. Moving forward passes a turn, so I can go over the spikes as they retract. We will make use of this later on since often the game puts 2 spikes after one another. Spikes will always spend 2 turns out and then 2 in. And that's it for floor 0, hopefully you could follow along, it's not a difficult floor. Now onto the main portion of the game. So now we're on floor 1, we start to gain essence for wins in combat. The floors from now on are also a lot more convoluted than the past ones, so do keep an eye on the minimap if you want to keep track of what direction I'm moving. Here we found a spell on a wall. We can use this spell to get an increased view of the minimap, although it really doesn't give you that much more of a view, to be honest. You can find spells etched out like this all over the map, although it's worth noting you don't actually have to interact with them at all to use them. If you know the spell, you can just simply use it, assuming you have enough mana. We also saw it in floor 0, but some of the chests are mimics. Generally, you want to hang just slightly to the side until they start shooting, and then try to open up on them once you get an opening. Like most enemies in this game, the mimics are vulnerable after doing an attack. It's worth noting that mimics always drop a reward, so they're basically the same as if you just loot a chest, except obviously you have to go through the fight as well. This one gives a longsword. To use it you need strength 6, which we'll get later in the level. I won't personally use this though, but it's good to sell coming up. This switch is a trap that will set off a boulder. If you set off any traps like this, you can hit back to move backwards and avoid the boulder's damage. If you're blocked by a boulder, it will eventually disappear if you pass enough turns. The locked door back there has a healing well behind it, but I opt to keep the key instead of using it here. This is our first encounter with an orc. He'll block your hits unless he makes himself vulnerable, which is only when he hits. You can bait him out first or block him, but blocking means you lose some of your stamina. You'll see me weave in and out to bait them into hitting and then go back in order to hit them. When hitting, you always want to be aware of your stamina usage, as if you run out you won't be able to block or dodge anything. Now going this way we find the shopkeeper. As far as I can tell they have the same shop on this level, although on later levels it's randomized. I don't opt to buy anything, but I sell the longsword I got earlier. You can't sell your base equipment or most enemy drops. The shopkeeper simply won't accept them. I'll show off the use for this spell shortly. There will be other places that you can use Gate where I won't show. I'll only show the ones I use in my route that I take. From this chest, we find a hooded cloak, which we're going to equip for now. This switch opens a gate nearby, but we won't be taking it. You can explore that direction for more items though. And here is the gate we opened. Instead of going through, we will backtrack to the beginning of the level. Here you can see an outline of a door. We can use our gate spell to open it. Like I said before, you don't have to have seen the spell to use it, so you can open this immediately if you'd like. I picked up a lot of items. I'm not a fan of using them, but I'll quickly go to a place that I can give them away for rewards. So here is the Red Knight, someone we're going to become very familiar with in this run. They're more integral to find in later levels, and they are required for the cherry. We can talk to them to get clues as to what we're meant to do, but obviously I'll show you what to do in this run. We can also give him items for rewards. He will also accept items that the shopkeeper will not. I believe some items are worth more to him than others, But once you've given him enough items, he can give you something in return. He can give you a variety of items, 5 gems, or most importantly, health or inventory upgrades. As far as I can tell, this is random, so I just give stuff to him whenever I get the opportunity. Hilariously, here he gives me a red potion after I give him one. In my mind, he just passes it back to me and wants me to be grateful for it. Now we're going back to where we opened the gate. We're going to fight a mimic here that will give us a good weapon that I'm going to use for a majority of the run. Like I said, you can open the gate immediately and get this weapon straight away on this floor. So for defeating this mimic, we get the rapier. This weapon is great since it does more damage while not using a lot of stamina. I use this for practically the rest of the run since I'm familiar with the attack speed and stamina usage. Plus it's nice to not have to rely on random drop chance for my preferred weapon. I go ahead and give my old dagger to the Red Knight. Now we've backtracked again to head in this direction. This well is a poison well, so ignore it. Here I use pastime to get through the spikes. For the spikes that are 2 in a row, you want to move into them as they retract, which feels kinda dangerous, but if you do it right, they won't damage you. This fountain is real, so go ahead and use it if you need to. I head this way to get some more essence from a chest. Here we can open another gate, which is a shortcut back to the Red Knight. This chest here has a key for us, which are always useful. Here is a throne. You can find one in every floor from here onwards. They can be used to increase your stats, which you can see on the left of the screen. This throne costs 200 essence, in future they will cost more. Strength increases your damage and the rate you recover stamina. Constitution increases max stamina, and as far as I can tell, max health every 3 points you put into it. So I'd suggest getting it in 3-point intervals to get the health. Wisdom increases max mana and gives you more time to cast spells. Here I opt to increase my strength twice and wisdom once. We're going to head this way to discover one of the more useful spells. Once again, you don't need to find them to use them, but I'll show you where they are. Here we learn the spell for Minor Heal, which does what it says on the tin. And this well-timed encounter lets me show it off. You can also use it while in combat as well. The reason I get 1 point in Wisdom is that it gives me enough mana where you can practically use this heal twice. This switch opens a gate that will let us backtrack. I'm going to show you where that is. If you want to, it goes back towards where the Red Knight is. We're not going to go back through, we're going to continue onwards back where we just came. You should have a key to use on this door. If you don't, you can get into some fights and hope that they drop them. This switch allows for even more backtracking as well. This just has a blue potion which you can use to restore stamina and mana. I'm just going to give it to the Red Knight later. This switch opens the gate to the exit of this level. We're going to go left out of here for another item first, though. Once again, I'm pausing to check my notes on which direction to go. Here we learn how to do the Pierce spell. It's useful in fights since it can hit blocking enemies and stun them, allowing you to follow up. It also hits enemies in the back, which you usually can't hit with standard attacks. This Mimic has a slightly better shield for us, so we're going to take care of that. I cut here since I got a bit lost. I got into a few more encounters, which is why I have more essence. One of the enemies I fought also gave an orc tusk. And now here's the exit to the next floor. I'm going to give any spare items I have to the Red Knight first though. The reason these gates are open is because of the switches we hit earlier. I get lucky here and get the health increase. That's why I spend so much time giving the Red Knight items. And now on to floor 2. Here you can see my essence is set back to 0 since I died and continued from this floor. I also lost any gems I had. Unlike floor 1, as far as I'm aware, all chests on future floors are random. This includes the mimic chests. Here's an example of a gem wall. Small ones grant 4 gems, but if you find a bigger wall, it will grant 8 gems. The idea is to make it so that no gems of the same type are next to each other. You'll know you've achieved this since they'll glow. We go down here to have a look in this chest. I won't go to every chest available simply because I haven't found all of them, but I will go to the ones that I've found near the path I take. It's useful to check in case you get a better shield or armor. Here we get to use the gate spell again. This direction only has a chest and a spell for us. The spell is very useful, but again, you can simply use it without finding it if you know how to draw it. And now we have the invisibility spell. You can use this to bypass enemies, even bosses. It is difficult to use with low wisdom though, since you don't have a lot of time to cast it. You can see me trying to practice it on my low wisdom and not having much success. Here for this enemy I use Pierce just to finish him off since he's in the back and low on health. I stop here just to check that there's nothing else here before going left through the gate. We check out these two chests to see what they give us. The one on the left is always a mimic. Here make sure to use the switch on the right, the one on the left is trapped. This fountain is a healing one, so feel free to use it. This is where the switch we pulled earlier grants us access to. If you remember the hints the Red Knight gave us, he's actually looking for an item we can get from this room. Keep searching it until you get the Zweihander. Bear in mind you'll need a space in your inventory to pick up the item. Also, there is a throne coming up that you need 400 essence for. Since searching often pulls up enemies, you can farm essence from them here quite easily. I'm going to cut until I get the Zweihander since this part is very repetitive and you get the idea. And now we have the item the Red Knight was looking for. If you want, you can equip the Zweihander, but you'll need 15 strength to do so. Also for the cherry, you'll have to give it to the Red Knight eventually, so you won't be able to keep it for the whole run. I personally found it hard to use since it attacked much slower than the rapier and used a lot more stamina. But that's not because it's a bad weapon, that's more just because I'm too familiar with the rapier. We are exiting to the south to reach a new area of the map that we need to hit. Make sure to head right here to get to the throne on this floor. I debate on this for a while. I end up going 1 point in wisdom and 2 in strength. If you want an easy way to get by the final boss of this floor, I'd suggest having at least 7 wisdom. But honestly, 8 would be better because you can see I only barely have enough time to cast the spell I want at the end of this stage. We flick this switch here to open a required gate that's just around the corner. Then we go through that gate to open up another required switch. It's worth noting the gate we just went through is at a crossroads, but we can only travel through in a straight line, meaning we cannot access the east or west from this position. And that's all from that area, so we go back to this room and exit north. We're passing where we entered this floor from, but instead of going left, we're heading right. The switch behind us here is a trap. Behind this gated wall, you can find a gem wall worth 8 gems and a few items. Although you will need to use gate 2 times for the gems and 3 for the other items. You can skip this if you'd like, or I believe there is a key door further south on the map that grants you access to this area. I always tend to keep keys available where possible though. Since I don't have enough mana, I move back and forth slowly to pass turns and regain it. Alternatively, you can use the pass turn in the menu to do this, but I found it much faster just to walk back and forth. Since this wall is bigger, it is worth 8 gems, but you have to do the same thing as the smaller wall of gems. And now for more back and forth. I don't utilize Spark much in my run, but I believe it does some damage if used in combat. It can also be used to light torches. This locked door leads back to the corridors we were in earlier, so we don't need to use a key to unlock it. This is my first time using Spark and I believe my only time on this run. I tend to stick with the spells and weapons that I'm familiar with, if you couldn't tell. By the fake switch we passed earlier, I noticed this gate that leads back to the entrance of the dark room. You can shortcut using this if you'd like. Now we find a shopkeeper or crone on this floor. They appear on each floor, and unlike floor 1, their items are random now, much like the chests. I would suggest always looking in the store, particularly for a better shield. If you're like me, the rapier will have you covered for the main weapon, and we'll be getting some great armor on floor 4 that will see us through to the end, so only a shield is really needed. I debated about trying the partisan, but ended up not buying it and sticking with the rapier. If you can't afford an item you want, you can steal it from Crone, just bear in mind that you'll have to fight them afterwards. I do this later on in the run. As always, we can pass turns to make it through these spikes easily. At the end is another chest. Somehow, after all that, I still mess up the timing. Here I should have gone straight to another chest. I soon realised I've gone the wrong way. If I were to go this way, we go to the gated cross section we were at before. This time passing through the right if we so choose. That leads us to where we found the invisible spell, which we accessed using gate earlier on in the level. Basically, you can always access different sections in different ways, and in this case this level is a massive circle. Now we head left here to get to the bottom of the map. And then we head left again to get to 2 more chests, although obviously if you're happy with your items you can skip this. And now we're back on track. This switch will open the final gate right next door. The gate we just went through was tied to the switch at the end of the section to the south of the dark room. If you want, you can keep going here to get another 8 gems from a gem wall. If you're not interested in those 8 gems, you can simply skip to the timestamp to get back here. And now we're going to head back to the exit. Now I'm going to actually skip the boss since it's easy to do using the invisibility spell we learned before. The only difficult bit is having enough time due to the amount of wisdom you've got. As you can see, I cut it very close with the time it gives for 7 wisdom, which is why I'd suggest getting to this point with 8 if you want to do the invisible strategy at least. This boss definitely isn't impossible to beat in a fight, but I always found it easier just to pass by him. So now on to floor 3. This floor introduces acid on the floors. Some switches will switch the acid so that it's in a different spot. Acid will damage you if you go over it. Here my invisibility I used at the end of the last floor wears off. There are new enemies on this floor. The eggs will hatch into lava if left alone too long. The lava is easy to deal with since they can't block, just be wary of them chain hitting you since they attack very fast in succession. These Formid act like the orcs from before, bait their attacks and then go back and hit them. The fungus are basically just the torches from before. Here is another switch to open a gate. This actually opens the gate to the end of this floor. It's a real pain if you get to the end of this floor and haven't flicked this switch, so definitely make sure to do that now. This switch shifts the floor acid. I opt not to do that for now, but I do come back here later. More importantly, behind this switch we can see a line hidden behind the sludge. This is how we can tell where we can use gate on this level. And here we learn the spell for fly, which is very useful. An immediate use is that you can use it to fly over acid, however you can also use it to pass over chasms. We're going to head back where we came from. I'm just checking my notes again, but we will be going left. If we go to the left first, we can find a chest. Here I take the bronze plate, but I don't change from the armor I currently have. Here I'm looking for a gate wall, since I remember there is one nearby. You can see on the left here there's a gate opportunity. I don't know why I don't show it, but behind it is a healing fountain if you need it. To the left here is a switch we need to hit for a gate. The switch we just hit opens this gate on the right, but we won't go through it yet. Here's where you find out how to cast Ice Block if you're interested. There's another spell I haven't used much. Ahead of us here is the throne for this floor, but we need to open a gate first. Now we're going through the gate we opened up earlier. I mistakenly go right first. This only leads us to a trap switch. So here we're going to make use of the fly spell we found on this floor to get over this section of acid easily. Here I forget that this is just a simple door I need to open, so I waste mana on gate for no reason. Straight ahead is a chest, but to the left is the switch we need to access the throne. I try out the partisan here since it was my first time using it. I quickly go back to the tried and true rapier though. You can see it almost cost me my life. Only one hit from death here. And now towards the switch we mentioned earlier. I opt to get my mana up by walking back and forth before taking this fight. Now to use Fly again to get over the acid and back towards the throne. If you need more essence for the throne, I suggest farming enemies a bit. There isn't as good a spot as floor 2, but running around and finding enemies should get you the 800 needed pretty quick. Of course, you could always opt to skip this throne, but bear in mind the later thrones are even more expensive. I end up going another 3 points in strength since I'm not too worried about my stamina usage with the rapier, even though I utilised the block arguably more than I need to. We encountered some of these lizards in the dark room on floor 2. They're basically orcs, but every other attack they'll spit out a cloud of smoke that will reduce your stamina to 0. They don't have much health, so can usually be taken out before they get the chance to do that. You can continue where I'm headed here to get to the exit. I realise at this point that I forgot to check on Crone for this level, so I decide to backtrack to see what they have. There's also our friend the Red Knight on this floor. We need to speak to him to continue the questline, but we don't have to do that yet. I opt to do it on floor 5. But obviously if you'd like to, you can do that here. I'll keep this part in just in case you're following along, but we're basically heading back to where we found the fly spell and the switch near that. Now we're back here, we'll use the switch so that we can reach Crone. Below us here is another healing fountain if you need it. Once again, Crone doesn't have much for me. Ideally, I'm looking for the Dragon Shield whenever I go to Crone. Unfortunately, after this floor I die, meaning I lose all of my hard-earned gems before I get a chance to buy anything with them. Potentially it would be worth holding on to some items instead of selling them, since you keep your inventory items on death, and you can just sell them as and when you need the gems. In the area I didn't check here, there is a switch to change to floor acid. Then go right out of this corridor here if you want to see Red Knight, either to continue the quest or to get items or upgrades from giving him items. And now I'm just heading towards the exit of this floor. Here I get comboed by the lava a bit. Definitely don't underestimate them. If this gate is closed for you, it's because you didn't flick a switch near the beginning of the level. It's near where we found the fly spell. We've seen this before, but I died on this floor, so I've lost all my essence and gems. Fortunately, again, it isn't that big a deal. So for floor 4, I'm going to head to the right first. A black potion is a very nice drop. Hold on to these if you can, since they increase your power by a good amount for a fight. This switch opens a gate that isn't required but is a shortcut to another section. By going down here we can learn the spell for Lightning Storm. On my current wisdom I don't believe it's possible to cast, but you'll see me try to do it multiple times. Here is the gate we opened up with a switch from earlier. We can then hit this switch to switch the floor acid. And go in the direction we couldn't get through just a moment ago. Be careful. At the left of this crossroads is a poison fountain. The direction we're heading now is to get to Crone and also an actual healing fountain if you need it. It does require a key, however, at least if you approach from the angle I do. This switch opens the gate we just passed. Here is the healing fountain and also a switch that switches the floor acid around. Click the switch so that you can access Crone if you need to. Here they have the dragon shield I'm looking for. Unfortunately, since I died, I lost all my gems. Unfortunate for Crone, that is. I hadn't stolen from Crone yet, but knew there'd be a fight on my hands, so I opt to use the black potion I found earlier. It makes this fight absolutely trivial, however even fighting Crone normally at this point should be fine, as their attacks don't do as much damage as you'd expect. Crone also gives me 150 essence, so if you need essence and feel confident about facing them, go for it. They also will appear on the later floors as normal. That 150 essence saves us a bit of grinding later in this level for the throne. And now back to where we came. There is a gate on the left here. The switch for it is just down this corridor on the right. You may have to switch the acid to reach it safely. I hadn't used the Formid head before and was interested to see what it did. It basically lets you teleport to a nearby location. Potentially it has some obscure uses, but there's no real need to hang on to them. You can see me trying to use the lightning storm spell I learned earlier, but it does not work for me. I stumble around a bit here, but the throne is in this area. In this combat, we come across a new spore enemy. I believe I've also run into these on floor 3 in some cases. They aren't too dangerous, but it's worth noting that they can heal the other enemies. Unfortunately, since I died, I still need a lot of essence. 1,400 for this throne. Once again, I'm failing the lightning storm. And here is the gate to the exit of the level. The switch is nearby, back where we came. Alternatively, you can fly over the gap directly opposite the gate. I didn't realise you could fly from the gate at the time, so I fly from here instead. Once again, I'm going back and forth in order to get mana to fly back. So now I'm going to farm for the throne. To farm, I simply head back and forth along this corridor. Lots of enemies spawn since they can approach from multiple angles. You can keep an eye on the minimap to see when they're near. This time I opt to get 1 point in each stat. There's another boss coming up, so I'm going to get some of my mana back first. So now for the boss. Like before, you can sneak by with invisibility, but this boss drops some really good armor for us. First, we have to deal with the 4 mids in front before the queen comes forward. Be ready to block or dodge her attacks from the back as well. Once she comes forward, you need to destroy both her arms before you can damage her. And for that we get a fungal cloak. This armor is great. Firstly, it poisons any enemies that hit you. Second, and more importantly, it actually allows you to heal after taking damage. It heals based off how much stamina you recover. So if you take damage, make sure to hit as much as you can, and then as you recover that stamina that you've used, you'll heal. I'm getting deja vu here, but I died again on this floor. Thankfully, I didn't have much to lose. Hence why I'm starting with 0 essence again. I apologise in advance since this is the floor I'm most unfamiliar with. Annoyingly, it is also the floor I decided to do the Red Knight questline on. You should still be able to follow, but I've cut up a lot more in order to make it not as tedious to watch. So follow the path I take here and head upwards. There's a switch up here that we need to open a gate. Here I fail to cast the Lightning Storm spell again. We also have a new enemy type, the Naga. They are really annoying at first, but fine once you know how to deal with them. They are blocking until they make themselves vulnerable by attacking, like most other enemies. The Nagas alternate between 2 attacks. One can be blocked while the other cannot. The key is knowing which attack is coming next, which will always be the opposite of the last attack she used. When she goes for the non-blockable attack, just hit her out of it, since the wind-up for that attack is a lot longer. She'll likely be stunned long enough to take out her whole health bar when you do this as well. Don't get too greedy while going for the kill off a normal blocked hit low, since she isn't stunned for as long and can break out and hit you quickly with her other attack. This fight isn't a great example of how to deal with Nagas since I'm getting back into the swing of facing them. This switch here is a trap. I'm going to skip some of these early fights since they are a bad showcase as to how to actually fight the Nagas, so they're pretty pointless to show. I'm also stumbling around a lot, so we'll cut out bits here and there as long as it picks up from the same position. These new doll enemies are simple to take care of. They're similar to the rats in that they dive from above. So now we come across some lava. Similar to the acid, it will damage you if you go over it. You can step on these platforms here to traverse any lava. They will always start in the same position and will stay wherever you leave them. This switch opens a gate back where we came. As you can see, the platform is where we left it. Now we're heading towards the Red Knight, and we're going to hand over the Zweihander. You can follow these steps on any of the floors with Red Knight on them. For this floor, you'll need to get a key to reach him. The Red Knight also appears on floor 6. It's also worth noting you'll need a second key on this floor if you want to get the Red Star Sword on this floor. So to start, we need to give the Red Knight the Zweihander. He'll then give us a red coin. I also go ahead and give him any other garbage I'm carrying. Now that we've got the red coin, we need to find a healing fountain. Make sure that it's a healing fountain, as if it's a poison fountain, it will not work. If you go straight here, you'll reach a key door that has the fountain behind it. I decide to first open up the throne, which is on the left, even though I'm nowhere near the essence required for it. This switch opens up a gate leading to the floor's throne. Here is the key door which leads to the fountain. If you need more keys, there's a chance you can get one from chests or from drops during battles. Also, Crone may be selling a key. I'm in the unfortunate situation of not having any keys, so I'll have to find one before I can go in. Round here is where we can access the throne. To the right is a chest you can check if you need to. With some crazy luck, I find a key in this chest. Like I said, there are multiple ways to come across keys though. And this is the first time I'm encountering another new enemy. These jester enemies are a real nuisance. They're only vulnerable while attacking, as many enemies are. However, one of their attacks has them throwing a ball at you. Once you start hitting them, you can usually take them down in one rotation. However, with the ball attack, it will often interrupt you, meaning that you can't combo them all the way down. Their other attack is to call in a doll. This is the best opportunity to kill a jester outright. Now I'm heading to the throne for this level. I should have really come here at the end since this throne is the most expensive in the game and requires 2000 essence. Obviously, if you're more of a gamer than me and you haven't died, then you might have enough essence to begin with. At least now we have a key so we can continue with the quest line. So back at the key door, we can enter it and access the fountain we need. This is the only healing fountain on this floor. Simply use the red coin. Don't drop it like me. Don't worry, I get there eventually. Make sure to wish for honor. The other options will give you other rewards, but not the sword we need. The for honor option gives us no reward right now, but upon returning to Red Knight we will get a reward. Now we simply talk to the Red Knight again and we get our prize, the Red Star Sword. This is my first time getting the sword, so I'm going to try it out. You're about to see I find it difficult to use since I haven't spec'd into Constitution for stamina, but it is fine for the final boss, which is all that I'm going to end up using it for. Now we're going to start making our way to the exit. I'm going to open up the way, pay a visit to our buddy Crone, and then come back to the throne and grind whatever essence is left. I couldn't approach the lava from there since there isn't a platform, therefore I have to go all the way around. Alternatively, you can use fly, but this section isn't too bad. As you can see, I've already given up on using the Red Star Sword for now. I equipped the bouncy ball here. I tend to just equip battle items when I can since I don't want them in my inventory. On this section of lava, you can go left from where I am now and it leads to the same place we want to go. For some reason I'm unsure of myself and go back slightly. Where I end up exiting the lava loops back to where we would have exited here, so you can go here and it's quicker. Down here is a switch that we need to hit to open a gate, which gives access to another switch, which opens another gate that will lead us to the exit. Continue down this way to say hello to Crone. Obviously you can skip this part if you'd like. Here we can see a crack in the wall, which means it's another gate opportunity. Unfortunately, I need to get some mana back. Not really sure what I'm looking for from Crone, but I do have a look anyway. They have nothing of value, so their fate is sealed. You obviously don't have to fight them, but I decide to since they give a lot of essence. This fight is a lot harder due to the fact that I don't use a black potion this time, but it's still fine. Now that we've paid a visit to Crone, it's time for us to head towards the exit. You can go back to the lava pool from earlier right now, or you can check where I am here for an additional chest. Now we're finally back on the lava pool we want to be on. If you look at the map, you can see what I meant when I said you can exit at either of those 2 points to get to the same area. Also, up here is another chest which we could have gotten earlier. If you want to head to the exit now, you want to head down the western path we haven't gone down yet and follow that path. There will be another switch you need to flip and then you can get to the exit. I decided to get the stats from the throne first, but obviously if you've already done that or want to skip that, you can just go to the exit now. To farm in this area, I like to keep going back and forth down this corridor. Keep an eye on the map since you may have to deviate slightly so that some enemies can reach you. Also remember you can pass turns if you want them to keep walking towards you, since sometimes if you're going back and forth around a wall, the enemies won't have very good tracking to find you. I came a bit closer to the throne as I was getting close to the 2000 essence requirement. I increased my constitution to 8 so that I get a small health boost as well as the much needed stamina. I then throw the last point in strength. So now we're heading to the exit through the door I mentioned earlier. If you're interested, the fountain ahead of us is poison. Follow this lava upwards and then keep to the right until you reach the final switch. Now, simply follow the path keeping straight when you have a choice and you'll reach the end of this floor. You don't need essence for anything on this floor. The throne for some reason is free, so don't worry about dying too much on this floor. There's no exit to this floor. In order to get to the final boss and beat the game, we need to find an emerald, a ruby, and a sapphire, also known as the best Pokemon games. Here, while going for the doll, I hit the Naga out of its attack. This is fine, but bear in mind when this happens, the Naga will still alternate its attacks, so in this case, the next attack is going to be the unblockable one. I'm ignoring a lot of the turn-offs here. There are some chests if you decide you want to loot more. For me, at this point, I just want to make it through. For this section, enemies will patrol down the corridors. You can simply pass turns until they pass and get through without a fight easily. Then I go straight at the end here to get to another room similar to the room we found on floor 2. This room is interesting since you can leave in multiple directions. You can go in whatever order you like. We need to go north, east and south for each of the gems. I opt to go south first since the throne is also down there. Along this winding path of lava is a switch we need to hit for a gate. And now all the way back from where we came. Now we're going to head through this door we passed earlier. If you're interested, the fountain ahead of us is poison, so don't use it. Then we can pass through the gate we just opened. Straight ahead is the throne, and to the left is our first special gem. I'm going to the throne first. As you can see, this throne costs 0, which is nice since we don't have the grind. I decide to increase each stat one final time. And now towards the gem, just head straight to the end of this corridor and follow it around. Now you can simply take the emerald from this wall, assuming you have space in your inventory. And then we're going to head back to the room with the pillar in it. Now I'm going to exit to the east. If you need the inventory space, I imagine you can leave the emerald in the pillar room, since this is eventually where we will use all of them. Along the left set of lava is a switch we need to hit for the gate that we just passed. Now we can head through the gate and say hello for one last time to our good friend Red Knight. I imagine if you haven't got the Red Star Sword yet, now is your last chance. In my searching, I did not find a healing fountain on this floor, but there are sections I did not search, and I imagine there is at least one of them. I give him anything I have left that I don't need in the hopes of getting some more upgrades. And he gives us a very nice inventory boost, useful for all the unique gems we have to carry as well. Down here is a switch we need to hit, once again for a nearby gate. Here on the map I see two groups of enemies, so I tried to get them to pass me by hiding by the switch. It does not work. Now this is our first time running into the hand enemy. They are a real pain since similar to the Jester it can attack from the back, where we can't hit it. Also when they are in the front, they are always blocking until they attack. If you get the timing right on hitting them, you can hit them before they get their attack off, and basically hit them until they're dead assuming you have the stamina. Unfortunately, if it gets this attack off, that will likely stop you from chain hitting it. If you're adept with the Red Star Sword, its charge hit can hit through blocking, so it's good to use against the hands. Now down this corridor is the gate we opened which leads to the Sapphire. I actually didn't end up using the switch, which is why I have to go back to open this gate. And that is our second gem, the Sapphire. Now we're heading back towards the Pillar Room, and once we get there, we're going to exit to the north. Here I get a well-timed hit on the hand and almost take it down in one go. I never checked this fountain opposite, so it potentially could be a healing fountain. I'm pretty sure you need to use slide to get to it. You need a key for this door. Annoyingly, if you don't have a key, there are a bunch of chests past this locked door, which isn't very useful. I'd suggest just exploring and getting into fights until you get one, since I'm unaware of a different way to reach the final gem, although I'm sure there is one, potentially by utilizing fly in some way. Follow the path I take here to get to the final gem. There are chests all over as well if you want to loot them. I'm pretty sure I loot them on my way back. You can see here with the hand I'm trying to preempt its hit slightly in order to get the timing. And with that we have the final gem we need. Now all we need to do is head back to the pillar room and initiate the final boss. First I take a small detour to see our friend Crone for one last time. As per usual, a disappointment. I let them live this time though. For some reason I also take the detour on the way back for these chests which we passed by earlier. I take a slight wrong turn here, we want to keep to the right. And now it's time. Remember to equip the red star sword if you haven't already, and then use all 3 gems to start the fight. As long as you have some throne upgrades, this fight shouldn't be too hard. Not gonna lie, I almost forgot to equip the sword. You can see I'm unfamiliar with the sword. This sword has a charge attack that I'm utilising by holding the attack button. I focus the Abyss Lord maybe more than I should, as if you don't hit anything with a sword you'll send an attack upwards, which is great at hitting the gems. You can damage the Abyss Lord like I am here, however as I soon realise you cannot kill them without first destroying all the gems. The Abyss Lord has different attacks depending on which gem is at the forefront, in this case the Ruby. The Ruby is one of the easier ones since it's only really this Chomp attack and the Pillars of Flame that are easy enough to avoid. As you can see, the Abyss Lord cannot be defeated with the gem still there. Now that the ruby's gone, they use their emerald form, which is again an easy one. You'll summon hands that are easy to stun lock. Now for, in my opinion, the hardest part of this fight, the Sapphire. The Abyss Lord will spawn blue orcs that attack much faster than normal ones. For this reason, you almost need to predict when they're going to attack and hit them first. If you destroy the Sapphire, any remaining blue orcs will die. In this stage, the Abyss Lord will also go into the background, so you cannot hit them. Now we just have to finish off the Abyss Lord. And like any good boss fight, we have a second phase. In this phase, they are harder to see, but still reasonably easy to hit. And there it is, the second phase isn't bad at all, particularly with the red star sword and its projectile. And that is it for our cherry run on Valbrace. Honestly, this is one of my favourite games in the collection, even if it is the one that by far took me the longest, especially with learning these mazes and all these routes. Obviously, I found enough to discover what I needed to do for the cherry, but there's still tons of stuff that I did not find in this run. As always, please leave any comments of any additional tips or information you have, so that we can share all of our knowledge of this game with one another. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.